All right. Hello, everyone. This is Money Mobsters special Saturday stream edition. We had to push off on Wednesday, so we're back on Saturday with some Saturday night retro vibes. Dougie with the Rockets. What's going on, Doug? How's your weekend going?
Man, it was I was telling you, we've I guess we missed a Wednesday, and it feels like a month of news has happened since then.
It's
So
happening fast.
yeah, things are happening fast. You and I haven't had a chance to just chit chat, so I am looking forward to just hanging out and spending a couple hours here talking to you and just enjoying the time. So
Is there? We got a lot to cover. We were just kind of scrambling here. Sorry for being late, but we were scrambling to throw everything together because there was just so much news that we were trying to squeeze in there and trying to like prioritize. Because honestly, this show could literally be 5 hours with how much happened, and really just like the last 3 days. Um, but we're obviously going to condense that down and just hit the meat and potatoes of things. Um, so we've got some Anthropic talk with the Department of War. We've got Iran, obviously, Citrini. We have Netflix. We've got the some of the State of the Union. We've got data center news. Stanley Druckenmiller did an interview, and he talked about a little bit about how George Soros has taught him about how to manage a portfolio. So we'll get into that, as well as Nvidia earnings, AI job losses, and more. So thanks everyone for watching. Um, Doug, what's going on? Which of these topics excites you the most?
Um, well, I got a little hot today. I was driving back from Baton Rouge this morning after a gymnastics meet, and was listening to All In podcast while my Tesla did all the work, and I just started getting hot. Um, at JCal, he's just doing an expert job at pissing me off, but um, these guys trying to sound like they're popular. These you know scented millionaire guys trying to sound like populists is just kind of vomit inducing. And yeah, so I definitely had the thing I was most passionate about today, but that's only because it was today. Like, and then it wasn't until after that I heard about Iran. So, like, do we want to start with that, or should we just go all the way back, start at the beginning of the timeline, and then move forward? I don't know.
Well, we can dive into the JCal thing. You're talking about from the podcast from one day ago when they were
Yeah.
talking about the State of
Came
the
out
Union.
yesterday or this morning. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we could dive right into the first clip here from the State of the Union that I thought was, and we normally don't lead with politics, but we'll dig right into it because it was such a huge clip. I think it was a really consequential moment where Donald Trump, as you guys have probably seen by now, asked the Democrats really to pick a side here. So I'll roll a clip.
If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens. Isn't that a shame? You should be ashamed of yourself not standing up. You should be ashamed of yourself. That is why I'm also asking you to end deadly sanctuary cities that protect the criminals and enact serious penalties for public officials who block the removal of criminal aliens. In many cases, drug lords, murderers all over our country, they're blocking the removal of
It's
the
masterful politics. It's masterful politics.
country.
I can see what they did. They went in a room and said, "Okay, forget all the shenanigans and all the edge cases and all the stuff that we want to do that maybe is not popular everywhere. What are those 80-20 issues or 90-10 issues that got us elected? Let's put those out there and make everybody stand and clap for them and show the American people who really is on the side of the 80-90 or 80-20 and 90-10 issues." and he just laid it out there, and let you could see they wanted to get up. They wanted to be like, oh yeah, this is an easy win, and they couldn't make themselves do it. They
should have been layups.
He put them all on the side of Iran. Like, so I don't love the guy. I mean, but it's just masterful politics versus amateur politics. I tell you what, they really need a leader who can, they need a leader who can bring them back to the middle, because I mean, they're going to pick up seats because you always do in in off-cycle elections, especially ones where the president is never going to be on the ballot again. But
it's just tough to watch.
He's showing the Republicans how to win for the next decade and a half. They just have to follow the blueprint.
Look, as an American, I would like to see a stronger Democratic Party where it's possible to vote for them, because I would like to have options. We don't want a uniparty, red or blue. Uniparties aren't great. So not great for America, not great for markets. They're one and the same. So I would like to see some adults take the reins of the Democratic Party, because right now I just feel like that's not there. Not that the Republicans are super mature. Look at the head guy, but the policy is mature, whereas it feels like the other side is throwing a bit of a temper tantrum, and their policies don't pass their own test. And people are starting to realize the consequences of that. So I think the next thing you wanted to talk about was the JCal clip.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't particularly care to give JCal any more discussion and publicity than he happily lauds on himself. But the other topic from the pod was from the State of the Union, rather, was the energy proposal. And I told you that's kind of what just had me losing my mind today. And I kind of told you I felt about it in text message, and you said you didn't disagree, or that you said that you disagreed. So I thought we could chop that up a little bit. I could explain to you where I'm coming from, and then see if that adds some perspective that changes your mind a little bit, or maybe you can, help me think through kind of the position that's coalescing in my brain, and maybe open it back up or change direction again.
Of course. Is it all right if I just quickly state the kind of like
let's set the topic.
So the idea is a lot of data centers are coming into certain specific areas, and there's a little bit of NIMBYism going on with water cost, electricity cost, that may or may not be relevant. And the president said, that the technology companies are going to have to pay their own way with the electricity. And I think that if that's part of your operating cost, the company should assume that. And I feel like, even as a pro-capitalist person, that seems to be what makes sense. So Trump is wanting the companies to take that on as their cost of operations. So Dougie feels differently, and I'm excited to hear why.
Okay. Well, I feel differently for a couple of reasons. And I'll just lay the first one out, is that's fundamentally, and we'll get to specific ones later, but the broadest one is it's fundamentally unfair. Just because you are the new current thing and the most hated industry by the current populists / CCP thought leaders doesn't mean you should have to pay more for publicly provided by public utilities products and services. That's fundamentally unfair. What other type of factory would you allow to come into your local area, and that would you allow a Tesla plant to open in your local area? And would you require them to provide their own electricity?
No. Okay. I think the argument there, just to push back a little bit for the sake of making the argument, is that data centers require a significant amount of electricity to the point that it drives up the market price. So say I'm a homeowner, now all of a sudden I'm not so happy about my electricity going up by 25%, right? So what about that scenario?
Okay, so then that leads into the more specific. First, okay, first of all, it is still fundamentally unfair. You're saying, well, these people use more electricity, so we're going to hit them. All right, well, what if they said, okay, well, instead of a 6 gigawatt data center, we only build a bunch of 1 gigawatt data centers or 500 megawatt data centers, right? I mean, so like, is there a size limit that you're willing to say, okay, if you're below this threshold, you no longer have to build a power plant? Okay, well, now it's inefficient because you're building multiple buildings.
Of course, not at scale. It's not the right size.
Right.
But I think the concern is that, as like a local resident, you're not going to get the full benefit of, like, you're going to be paying more for electricity, but really the data center is like a socialized gain for society.
You hit the nail on the head.
And really, you don't even feel that as an individual because you take it for granted. Most people don't know that they use data centers every day.
But you hit the nail on the head. The way we live now is everyone is concerned about everything. No one has solutions, but everyone has concerns. So it's more the banana thing, build, what is it? Build nothing anywhere. Like, so let's look at this specifically now, though. So what do data centers make?
Tokens.
Okay. What happens when the cost of tokens remain astronomical? When the government gets involved in pricing, what happens to the cost of tokens?
It would probably go up because you're subsidizing additional demand.
Yep. So who then continues to control the supply and the use of tokens?
Well, if the government's helping set the market, if they get overly so involved, then the government.
And the hyper wealthy.
Of course.
By allowing
if you can buy power.
Yeah, because they can buy the power. So sooner or later, not only do they control the tokens, they also control all the electricity, all the new electricity, all the new and efficient electricity. So I got news for you. The cost of electricity that you mostly pay is the fuel cost, not the manufacturing cost for the new thing. So you're going to tell the data centers company operators that they have to go pay a premium on their natural gas purchases versus what the public utility would say. Because once the CapEx is done for the build out, that's done. Now it's the OpEx. Well, they're still going to consume at that rate, but now they're competing with the utilities for the fuel costs. And since they have all the money, they can afford to pay higher prices, and they can outprice and force the public utilities to pay higher prices. So now they've built the new infrastructure, they've built all the new shiny efficient stuff, and they're going to control the fuel purchases, which means they're also going to control the token cost, and you will never get economies of scale on the token cost. It's just insane to do this, because the thing that is going to allow the middle class to catch up in this AI trade is to have access to cheap tokens.
Okay, so if we're speaking economically, I agree with you. Now, here is like what I think might be a pragmatic argument that maybe Saxon, Chamath, and others are making, which is if you develop enough unpopular support against AI and that train starts spinning up, what happens is you get all these local blockers like you did in New Jersey, and then you get a bunch of foreign influence that comes in and starts applying NIMBY tactics and fear tactics to building new data centers, and then you fall behind. So despite the economic argument that you just made, which I think is actually correct, if you want to go fast, then it's actually a different objective that's more important than the economics. What about that?
So it's not. So what you're saying is it's worth taking the wrong side in an economic situation because you're losing the PR war.
Exactly.
Two,
Yeah, you fix the PR
China
war by
and Bernie
paying for it.
Sanders.
You pay for more speed. You pay to bypass the PR of it and just have the companies pay their own way, and then that problem goes away.
If you're Microsoft, Google, Meta, you love this deal. It's basically the government handing you a monopoly on power generation.
Right.
You love this deal. It's the government enshrining into law that you get to control the price of the fuels, the power generation, which
and the
I assume you will be able to sell back to the public utility whenever you want, only when prices are high enough for it to be worth your while, by the way. And finally, you control the token costs by keeping them elevated and keeping them super restricted. Because what you want to do is you want AI to be a product everyone has to pay a lot of money for.
Right. And we think with the demand that will continue to spiral. We are still really, really early here.
And everyone is trying to make decisions now based on what 22-year-olds who went and got, social work degrees. They can't get a job at Google, in HR. Well, sorry. Yeah, those jobs don't exist. You self-selected yourself out of a forward-looking career. But the kids that are in middle school now, they need real-world AI training, and they need it fast. And because they're middle class and lower class and public school kids, they need access to cheap tokens and lots of them as they continue the second portion of the latter half of their education.
Yeah, people are using it. How long was that thread that I sent you today from Gemini that I used?
I mean, it was long.
It's pretty long. I had some questions, and I tortured the AI a little bit to make sure that it was giving me accurate information because I really wanted to make sure. So my one query actually turned into, I think, like 7 or 8 queries.
Yeah, bro sent it to me while I was driving, so I had to hold my phone up in front of my face like this.
It was a Tesla.
So that Tesla thought that I was paying attention to the road the whole time I was reading Austin's thing.
This is not driving advice, and this is not financial advice. Both of those things are true on Money Mobsters on Saturday night. We're out here. We're doing the thing. We got the Topo Chicos out Saturday night.
Don't drink and drive, kids, but drink and stream.
And definitely not financial advice. Again, can't really stress that one enough. We just like doing research. We had a clip here from the Compound and Friends that we wanted to roll a little bit more of the AI talk around popular opinion.
Okay, so this is more. Pause for a second. Let me set this up.
Yep.
So this is more talking about. This is a pivot. This is a different topic now. So this topic is now centered around the investment cycle. Okay. What kind of returns we're looking for this year, next year, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So this is not AI trade specific, but this is, addressing more like the sell-off in SaaS and software and anything else that Dario has his people tweet about that Claude can now replace.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we've actually got a few clips to roll about that. So this will be our lead off, and then we'll keep rolling.
AI. Oh boy, because the unemployment rate's going up. But it's not. Well, I know. That's the irony, right? I mean, we're sitting here, I wonder almost if it does, is that actually like the bullish outcome here? Because if you need something in a world where like nominal growth is pretty high to keep the Fed easy in 26 and 27, is it the unemployment rate going from 3.25, or from 4.25 to 5.25? Is that kind of that structural shift in employment that gets the new Warsh Fed to cut 100 pips when everyone thinks they're only going to do 25 or 50? That, I think, is the big question. Is the asset bubble actually in front of us if we're cutting into what is otherwise a pretty sound economy here?
Nope.
Stop it.
Oh, wait.
This is not the clip that I thought it was.
Oh, we've been bamboozled.
Yeah, we've been bamboozled, but it's still a very interesting point.
Oh, data centers. Here it is.
Okay.
We have to weigh the good with the bad. But you have a really hot take here.
Yeah.
Data centers are the new fracking.
That's exactly right. So
All right.
we went through
That's
this
a
15
big
years ago.
one.
We went through this 15 years ago with fracking. Fracking was the economic promise. By the way, we were coming out of the financial crisis. And so this was seen as a way to get more jobs, more investment, lower trade deficit, or better foreign policy. There were so many benefits to that. And you're talking about contaminating water possibly, or earthquakes. I mean, this is beyond just the economic issues of the local NIMBYism. And there was a lot of resistance. At one point, we were having a debate on the House floor about banning fracking.
I remember.
Okay, like the Exxon XTO merger clause said if we ban fracking, this deal's not going to happen. That's how real it was at one point. Okay, and it's interesting because Boone Pickens used to say it's okay if New York bans fracking.
Right.
Okay?
We're not fracking here.
We're not fracking in New York. He's like, we don't need that now. Eventually, they'll do something where they're going to need fracking at a later point, as long as we got it going on in the right places. Okay, and you have it going on in the right places right now, which is Virginia, out through the Midwest. Okay. But when you have the governor of Virginia stand up, which is the heart of the data centers, because the CIA data centers are there.
Yep.
And she's like, I think we should slow this down. That's a real signal to the market. Or Ron DeSantis saying, hey, maybe we should take a closer look at some of these data centers.
Virginia is the biggest cluster there is. And that goes back to AOL being based there.
Yeah.
And they knew how to do this stuff there.
Correct.
Right.
It's really amazing. If you haven't taken a tour down there, it's really worth the tour. But then go in the diner right down the street from the Micron factory that this is all building around. It's a very MAGA, very, very Trump-oriented diner where you feel the local opposition. And so what I'm arguing is, what did the energy industry do to ultimately win on fracking? They got ahead of this. They were able to tout the benefits of it. They were able to bring out supporters of it. And what we're finding is that the energy industry was way ahead of the debate. They understood that there was risk. The tech industry is slow. So you got all this regulation and legislation popping up, and they're slow. They got to come in and say, hey, you know what? You don't like this? Here's the medical innovations that are going to happen from this. You're worried about your local electricity prices? Here's how much your local property taxes are going to go down because we're building this factory in here.
That's right there.
There's a way to.
You said right there?
Yeah, that right there. You're worried about your electricity prices. Well, look how much your property taxes aren't going to go up. Like,
because of the corporate tax revenue, you mean?
Yeah, like look at how good your schools are about to get. Like, no one thinks more, or populism never thinks more than 2 weeks in front of its nose. It only thinks about what you can enrage the people on next, and that's just the Chinese playbook.
Well, I think that's an easy button to push, right? Like, especially to people who are in like the bottom half who haven't benefited from what they call the K-shaped economy.
Do this? The tech industry has just been slow.
Well, with fracking, the answer is obvious. $2 natural gas does the trick.
Correct.
Okay.
But it took a while to get there.
But what's the obvious way for the tech people to, is it just jobs? Like, look how many people were employing in these places that were erecting the data center.
One of the problems is they don't create a lot of jobs. There's not a lot of construction jobs, and there's definitely not jobs inside the data center itself. So you got to make it about property taxes. If I'm in a town with a lot of kids and a data center comes in, that's more money for education in that town.
You know, it'd be a good argument. Hey, it's this or a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, right. Right.
You pick.
You pick. This is such a better way to do it, right? But I think that there's going to be the great thing about federalism,
or you'll get
there's
both.
going to be states that are going.
Or you get both. Yeah, you get them right next to each other.
Because you'll get the data center, and Microsoft will build the nuclear power plant there too.
Going to be able to get this thing done, and you don't need it all. Bernie Sanders and Vermont, they're going to ban data centers in the next couple of weeks. We don't really need data
Chris,
centers.
the irony of the fracking revolution, just to extend the metaphor, is that probably last on the list of beneficiaries were the publicly traded stocks of the frackers themselves.
Oh, totally. I mean,
it had a lost decade.
Think about the irony of this whole environment. The first chart you showed was the unemployment rate for new college graduates, right, which has exploded. Try to get a plumber to your house. Try to get an electrician. You can't, right? So God bless the trades. It is a bull market in trades. you show the Time magazine cover from this week. The irony is, 6 weeks ago, who was the person of the year? All the AI titans,
7 of them.
right. Now we talk about Chat GPT and Sam Altman. Look at SoftBank. It kind of tells you all you need to know. What's the stock down? Maybe 45 or 50% from the highs.
Annihilated.
I mean, find me a financial crisis or a tech crisis where SoftBank doesn't have their fingertips on it, right? So you have that backdrop.
Is that
going on.
Is that the post?
Does that about cover it?
Yeah.
Cool. Data centers are the new fracking. So politically unpopular, but economical, and a lot more economical, though. I feel like that's a very key difference. No?
It doesn't matter because it's politically unpopular.
But it's also politically necessary. So, like, fracking wasn't politically necessary to the extent that AI is.
What? Fracking is where you get your energy from.
Of course.
Sorry, fresh frozen. Access to energy is more important than any of those other things. All those other things can be engineered, fixed. You cannot engineer yourself new energy. You got to get it from somewhere, and it's never easy. It always has costs.
You ever look into like this Bloom Energy or like SMR or GE Veranova?
Yeah. I used to work at Babcock and Wilcox. We practically invented the small modular reactor. We had the first approval to build it back in 2012. Did we have any customers? No. It was right after Fukushima.
There's customers now.
We'll see about that. There's lots of hype right now in the market, but I am unaware of anyone ready to throw a breaker.
But good idea, right? Good idea. Works in concept.
I mean, like many things, it's a product that probably has use, but you get so much more efficiency when you have a giant power center.
What about a fuel cell like Bloom Energy?
You still have so much more efficiency when you have a giant refuelable reactor.
Okay. Yeah, see? Like, Fresh Frozen's got me, dude. Fresh Frozen with the blueberries. I think I know who this is. I'm pretty sure.
I love me some blueberries. I'm drinking some scotch right now, but I'm kind of tempted to go get some blueberries to snack on while we do this.
I'm snacking on exotic pineapple, it says, the Topo Chico. That's what I'm snacking on. I've got a friend who likes Bloom Energy a lot. In addition to Chris Camillo, I know he's a fan of the company and feels
he's a fan. He's a fan as well.
Yeah.
I'm all about new and exciting energy plays. There's lots of energy in the universe. There's lots of places to get it. Hydrocarbon being the easiest and least costly.
So I think the next thing we wanted to talk about was like kind of the SaaS apocalypse, the Citrini article. So all of this AI generation is leading to more efficient coding by multiples and multiples. And some folks are starting to get a little bit nervous about like what the terminal value of software is and the discount rate that's required for a company that's potentially being disrupted in real time. Obviously, every software company is going to have a little bit different effect taking place there. You can decide for yourselves what is durable, what's not durable. But, we've talked about some of the names: Workday, Intuit, ADP, Adobe, even Microsoft has been getting hit a little bit. But lately, some of the financials, I'm not sure if that's related at all. But Dougie, what are your thoughts as far as, the software dip that we're continuing to see? It looks like it's stabilized for the time being, but
to quote a famous man, it's all going to zero.
It's all going to zero.
For a while, I know you and I both as Palantir investors, we understood Dr. Karp's theory on the LLMs were commodities.
Mm-hmm.
I think we might find that some of this software stack becomes commoditized. Now, there are certain functions and features that Jensen talked about, that these are tools. Why would AI rebuild a tool when the agentic AI uses tools? But then there's also the level of, well, how much is the customization of this tool to my need going to cost versus having the agent make me a new one exactly for what I need at
Potentially
the price of a few tokens. So again, it gets in the price of what's the price of tokens, right?
So let's roll that clip that Jensen talked about, because he addressed that exact point, and then I'll let you riff off of it.
The reason why it's so exciting, of course, is because it can write software. What's going to happen?
Whoa, we're way too fast. I'm not sure what happened. You guys will have to keep up. We're on double time. I'm not sure what happened.
Also known as a Kukreja speed.
Kukreja speed, exactly. This is Roy's channel, but we're on Kukreja speed, so apologies. Bear with us.
Happen are the tools companies, the platform, the ISVs, the SaaS companies, the tools companies. They will use agentic systems to develop their software, but enterprises are not going to go develop software. They're going to use agents to use those tools. And so what's likely going to happen is that agents won't replace the tools, but agents will use tools. That's the reason why we also say agents are tool users. Why write rewrite the browser when the browser exists and just use it? Why rewrite Excel when Excel exists, just use it? The reason why it's so exciting, of course, is because it can write software. What's going to happen are the tools companies.
So you have Jensen there making the argument that the AI is not actually going to write the new software that the agents work upon, but they're actually just going to use the existing software as agents. But some of the arguments that I've heard against that is that AI is going to write more flawless, better software, particularly for the agents to use as Rails, than the existing software. So, Doug, I'll let you continue your point.
So is that going to be a new stack in the software layer? And what we're used to being software, meaning what the user actually uses, that I think that gets commoditized away. And there becomes another layer in the stack, which is what the agents are using back and forth. So that software still has to exist. But look, the mantra that Silicon Valley has been using since the 1980s has been, your margin is, they've gone to every business in the world and said, your margin is my opportunity. All right. And now the software is coming for the software.
But I don't think the margin compresses to zero, though. Like the growth might slow down, zero, but yeah.
But clearly the market has said in the last 2 weeks is growth. We don't care about growth. You can take your growth and stick it up your place where the sun don't shine. We're only interested in what heavy assets you have.
It's come back a little bit. So like names like AppLovin and Palantir have sort of like settled out a little bit. Even Google, because of the cloud growth.
I mean, yeah. So
like Google's holding 300. It's 10% off of all-time highs.
Palantir is still down huge. AppLovin is still down huge.
Sure.
Zeta had a little bit, and these are companies that have some proprietary data that is not reproducible by software. But if you are like Harvey.ai, well, in a world of agentic AI where that can just have Claude bots, read through the law books and write me a software to essentially develop a legal workflow, so I don't even need Harvey.ai anymore. Like the industry leaders of 9 months ago are now getting commoditized. So do they remain a part of the ecosystem, or they just get swallowed up? And I think there's going to be some of this, like Adobe. There's no reason for that company to exist. There's no reason for ServiceNow to exist. There's no reason for Salesforce to exist.
They'll exist because there's not another product in the market right now that serves those same functions.
Yeah, but you could write one. Like you could get
but
one.
They're not there yet. They're not there yet, and then it takes time for the migration, and not everyone does it quickly, and there's also niches within the
that's the
within the
value.
market.
That's
So
the
like
value.
there's large, there's medium, there's middle, and there's different tools that different people need. So I think it takes time to complete the set of tools that the AI set of tools that you need rather than what's already existing. So I think it takes longer than I think is being currently anticipated.
So I'm thinking 5 years to 10 years down the road. Okay. Fresh, you make a good point. I'll come back to it. And that's why no one cares what growth is right now, because some of these big companies, they don't have the pricing power going forward because they've been charging on a per seat model. Well, why should I pay? You're not delivering me that level of value anymore.
Are you talking about like price renewals where they have like pricing power?
Right. Yeah. They lose pricing power every time it comes up because every iteration, like in 2 years, what are Claude bots going to be able to write software wise? Like, will they be able to make me PDF readers? I don't need Adobe then for most of my enterprise software. Maybe for some specialized creative stuff, we'll still need, some of their more creative and graphical creation stuff, but their main product, Acrobat, is going to be completely worthless. So why would I pay a per seat license when I can just get the tools I need created by my AIs for me? And I only pay the tokens that I need to pay. I don't have to pay a per seat license.
Here's why you pay.
It's write once, run many, right?
Here's why you pay though.
That's why software has been so valuable for the last 30 years. You create something once and then you can sell it an infinite number of times.
Right. It scales well. But do you recognize this?
No, and the font's too small on my screen.
Okay. So what this is a text chain. And I'll read it off here. But basically, Meta's head of AI safety and alignment got her emails nuked by OpenClaw. So I guess she asked her OpenClaw agent to give it unrestricted access to the personal emails. And it started nuking her emails. And you can see here, can you describe what you're doing and what's going on? And it says nuclear option, trash everything in the inbox older than February 15th. And this was posted on the 23rd. So anything older than a week, it's nuking. And it says, she says, back to the bot, do not do that. And it says, check how many left. And it continues deleting. And she responds again, stop, don't do anything. It continues. And then she responds in all caps, stop, OpenClaw. It continues. And it continues deleting stuff. And then finally, the last message she says, I ask you not to action on anything until I approve. Do you remember that? It seems you were deleting my emails without my approval. And the Claude bot responds back, yes, I remember, and I violated it. You're right to be upset. I bulk trashed and archived hundreds of emails from your inbox without showing you the plan first or getting your okay. That was wrong. So, like, I understand this is kind of like the worst case scenario here, but this is also Meta's AI safety director. So like it's kind of like a pump the brakes moment, I feel like.
We can also say this, we don't know that that's real.
I mean, it was posted specifically by that individual, that Meta employee.
There's a big difference between what's posted and what is real. If that executive had to go to court and testify that that's what they did under oath, you might have a lot of I don't remember.
Well, maybe that's possible, and that's an.
Or I don't recall.
But why? What does Meta have to gain from that? From their AI safety director, like they want the public opinion to be of AI to be positive, so that they can continue pouring tons of money into it and get gain. Meta already has kind of like a PR image issue, especially with how Zuckerberg is. So like, what do they have to gain from this?
Easy, because they're not selling LLMs. They're not selling agents. Meta's AI is running in the background to help them sell ads. I mean, they're using AI. They're not selling AI to the end user, I should say.
I'm not sure it benefits them though to like throw LLMs in the trash, right?
Yeah, because they don't care. They really do not care.
I'm not sure I see the upside.
The LLM is just the interface now for the agent running in the background.
Yeah, I got you. I just don't know if I see like the upside and like why they would mention that. Here was Joseph Carlson's take. I thought was pretty interesting. This is specifically related to some of the examples that Citrini gave as far as what it's going to look like in 2028 in this doomsday scenario, which, by the way, you and I texted. It was a little bit Marxist the way that they basically implied all the money's going right to the top, and there's going to be no like abundance and cost of living decrease or quality of life boost, which is what happened in the first industrial revolution. I sent you an article about that.
Yep, that was fantastic.
Yeah,
the rebuttal argument you sent me. We should cover that more. I'm sure more people have heard the Citrini bit than have heard the rebuttal. So I feel like we should definitely spend more time on that.
Yeah, we'll circle back to that after Joseph Carlson. But some of the examples that Citrini gave were that DoorDash, and I know, Doug, you want to talk about this too, so we'll have to circle back once again for DoorDash and the APIs versus the app install. Matter of fact, I think we'll just play the DoorDash clip too. But I wanted to also visit the MasterCard because I did buy MasterCard. Once again, folks, this show is not financial advice. I'm just letting you know what I did. I bought MasterCard at about 2-3% of my portfolio. And I just feel like it's a good discounted buy here that doesn't actually face disruption. So here's the Joseph Carlson clip kind of making the case. And, MasterCard is a great business to begin with. But here's the case he makes as to why MasterCard is not going to be a victim of Anthropic.
Because it undermines the case that they're making. They're saying it's the poster child, but in reality, it's very resistant. But the next example that they name it goes from bad to comical. Now we're going from delivery food networks like Uber Eats and DoorDash to the payment networks, Visa and MasterCard. They say once the agents controlled the transaction, they went looking for a bigger paperclip. There's only so much price matching and aggregation to do. The biggest way to repeatedly save the user's money, especially when the agents start transacting themselves, was to eliminate fees. In machine-to-machine commerce, the 2 to 3% card interchange rate became an obvious target. Agents went looking for faster and cheaper options than cards. Most settled on using stablecoins via Solana or Ethereum, where settlement was near instant and the transaction cost was measured in a fraction of a penny. And then they have a hypothetical, again, this is a fake headline of the future. MasterCard Q1 2027, net revenues plus 6% year over year. Purchase volume growth slows to 3.4% year over year from 5.9% the prior year. Management notes that agent-led price optimization and pressure in discretionary categories. Bloomberg, April 29th, 2027. It was MasterCard's Q1 2027 report that was the point of no return. Agentic commerce went from being a product story to a plumbing story. MasterCard dropped 9% the following day, Visa too, but pared their losses after analysts pointed out its stronger position stablecoin infrastructure. Agentic commerce routing around interchange posed a far greater risk to card-focused banks and monoline issuers, who collected the majority of that 2 to 3% fee and had built an entire business segment around rewards programs funded by merchant subsidies. American Express was hit the hardest, a combination from headwinds from white-collar workforce reductions, gutting its customer base, and agent routing around interchange, gutting the revenue model. Synchrony, Capital One, and Discovery fell more than 10% the following weeks as well. Their moats were made of friction, and friction was going to zero. That's the whole thesis there, right? Friction is going to zero. And this is where Citrini, with all due respect, and I really like this, I think it's an interesting hypothetical, so I'm not trying to bash them, but with all due respect, they couldn't be more wrong here. One of their assumptions, and this is a very tech kind of nerd-focused assumption, a lot of investors have this assumption too, is that all customers want is less friction. That's all customers want. And that's an assumption that's correct in some cases. Customers don't like friction in a lot of cases. But in reality, there's some cases, some unique ones, where customers do like friction, where they love friction. They don't want friction to go to zero. And settlement is one of them. Payments is one of them. Customers love friction in payments. They absolutely adore friction, and they would hate for it to go to zero. Customers they continually reject propositions where friction goes to zero in payments. Let me give you a couple examples.
Yeah,
the whole value of a credit card is friction. That's why high-income people
reject
like people like me.
when the friction goes to zero because they get told from politicians and fear mongers and everything else online that it's bad for them. Continue.
Hold on, restate that.
I'm saying because the people who are benefiting from the friction are successfully able to lobby the electorate.
No. He's making the case on like for the consumer. So as the consumer, you want to use the card because it creates
routinely elect for to not go the frictionless route because the frictionless route is said it's scary or it's problematic or it's not safe. So we have to keep all this friction in here. But yes.
Well, the point he's making is about counterparty risk and that you want to have a level of protection there that he'll continue. I'll just keep rolling it here. He continues to make the point that I think might round things out.
Use a credit card is because of the additional friction. Allow me to explain. When I swipe a credit card, I don't want settlement to happen instantly. I want it to show that I paid money, but I want there to be friction in the process. I want it to be routed through my bank. I want it to be the bank's money that paid that money, not mine. I want my money to stay put, to have a delay. I want there to be a period of review where I can look at what the bank purchased on my behalf. I can review it and make sure that it was charged correctly, that I received the product, and I don't need to dispute it. I want to be able to review all of it before I actually put my money into the process. That's friction. That slows down the process. When you're purchasing things and you're transacting, you want to slow down the process. In fact, the fact that I don't have to pay the money right away to buy something means that I can hold it in my savings account and earn 4% interest for another 2 weeks or another month. That gives me the time money value. So by having friction in this process, by having a slower period of me paying for something, that is advantageous. And consumers want to delay payment for as long as possible. That's why you have buy now, pay later. That's why you have credit cards where you can buy something today and pay for it in a month.
He goes on to talk about as well credit card rewards and how credit card rewards are only possible when you have the 2.5-3% interchange fee. Yeah. So people also want to have their credit card rewards. So like if I have an Amex and, on average, I probably get like 2.2%, somewhere in that range back on average from whatever I spend. And why would I use like a L2 Ethereum type stable coin, whatever you want to call it, like SoFi stable coin, PayPal stable coin? Why would I want to use one of those when I haven't been able to verify my purchase if it was online. So I don't know that it actually got to me yet if it's a product that's being shipped. I don't have the protection of being able to charge it back if the service goes wrong and really poor. I don't have the credit card rewards. And I also don't have that 30-day lag where I can buy something and then I don't even actually have to pay for it for the next 30 days. On top of the fact that, you can do like credit card churning where you end up with, certain situations where you can get cashback credit if you spend a certain amount of dollars in a certain set of time, or even get 0% interest for 9, 12, 15 months. So I think those are some bull cases as to why the credit card industry is kind of being underrated right now in terms of the network effect. Are you particularly bearish on any of that, or do you think that's
when you're on the other side? When you're on the other side of that transaction, you do want all that frictionless stuff because you do not want to pay those, because it's on the merchant usually to pay those fees.
Yeah, but the merchant
customers don't typically feel the difference in a 2 to 3% price increase to cover those charges.
So, but if I'm John's Tacos and I'm trying to sell tacos, the last thing I want to worry about is trying to convince all my customers that they need to start adopting this new technology, when really all I want to just do is get taco customers into the place. I'm not that motivated to get rid of the 3%. Maybe it's something that, certain businesses start to try out, and if it works for them, great. But I just don't see this mass rush to adoption because there's not really that much incentive to it for even the owners of the businesses that are having to pay these fees, because if you were to say, okay, we don't accept Visa, MasterCard, Amex anymore, a lot of the business would just kind of dry up instantly. Like you're making it hard for people to do business with you, right?
Yeah. But speaking as a small business owner, I want my money. Like paying my rent is still due to my landlord. You know,
you
my
can
bills,
want your money.
my bills still have to clear for my utilities, right? Those still all have to happen on time. So yeah, I want my money. Give me my money.
You can want it, but it doesn't mean it's like gonna be coming, right? Like if I just don't see how as a consumer you're able to get people off of the current system. Like it seems really enticing. You might call it a Venus flytrap. You can call it whatever you want, but like it's. I feel like it's ingrained.
And also, look, this is you and I had a little bit of a generational whiplash today, and we'll illustrate it here because you're much fresher than I am. Do you remember a time whenever you went into a restaurant, they would ask you when you want smoke? The first thing the hostess would ask you is, do you want smoking or non-smoking?
No, because by the time I was growing up, that had, at least in Ohio where I grew up, that was mostly banned indoors at that point.
Yeah.
Or maybe not banned indoors, but like at least discouraged.
So when I was growing up, the whole restaurant was the smoking. So like there was the smoking section, at least like fast food places. There wasn't a no smoking section until you went probably to nicer places. Or I was just older, maybe. But like when I was growing up, like every table at McDonald's or Hardee's, whatever, they had the little tin ashtrays, every single one of them. So the point I'm making is that they can just train a younger consumer to accept this the whole time, and boom, it's in 20 years it's done, and you don't even know it. Like you and I will still remember a time when we had control over our finances, but the people who are 30 won't have that memory at all, and it's just the way they've lived their lives their whole life.
Maybe, but that's also discounting the entire idea that like these companies don't adopt and change along the way, right? Like if a disruptive force comes along, they can always build upon it and move with it. We saw,
let Visa just buy Circle. Like, okay, problem solved.
They could do that, or they could create their own, or even like, right, a good example is Google, launching their LLM and getting Gemini up and running. That's a good defensive force that like companies can create and build, and I don't think that they're like destined to be doomed if like a competitor comes along. They can react.
Yeah, but we can't say everyone is Google, because nobody else has those free cash flows, so they can just invent a new.
Well, the bigger company, bigger problem. I think companies do have the ability to respond and maybe even partner with companies like Google and Microsoft to make sure that their business stays on top of things, or they can even leverage tools like Claude themselves and build it internally. There's lots of options. They can make sure that their business stays relevant.
Yeah, and Fresh Frozen makes a point. Swift exists, and it is internationally accepted. But they're taking a small piece out of every transaction, and the question is, what does the public mind? Does the public mind allowing government control over that? And how much are they willing to allow that group to extract from the financial payment network?
Yeah, there's definitely some power going on there. Just to loop back to this one, did you still want to cover this one just real quick? I'm sorry that we're kind of doing it out of order.
No, it wasn't that one, but I mean, one? The 2 years, the 2-year approval, I mean, that's going on for data centers now. That is nothing. That's not even fracking. That's happening for building data centers. But no, he was making a good point about the multiples on like Palantir and AppLovin being very high. I agree. Zeta still seems very cheap. Shout out, by the way, to our boy Sam.
Sam Solid.
Sam Solid landed the interview with the Zeta CEO.
Let's go, Sam. I haven't watched it yet, but it's on my
Launched
watch list.
on his channel today. So
I'm sure it was great. He's a very sharp guy. Sam.
Stuff too. A lot of non-business stuff too. Especially like if you're a dad or want to be a dad in the near future. A lot of talk on that I found. Not as a father myself, but I did find it interesting. So
now to tee up the yeah, guys, go watch Sam Solid's channel. He does a great job covering Zeta, and a bunch of other stocks. But I think to keep on the track of what we were talking about, SaaS disruption, what's going to happen in the future of 5, 10, 15 years from now when the cost of code is cheaper, right? I think that's just kind of a given at this point, that the cost of building your own code is going to be cheaper. So there's going to be more productivity. What does that mean for white collar workers? What does it mean for knowledge work? And the Citrini article really kind of painted this picture where earnings are going to decrease, margins are going to compress to zero, future growth is going to slow, and layoffs are going to happen. And, it was kind of like the worst of both worlds. As I just mentioned, you're going to have companies that react to these types of movements. So keeping with that point, I just wanted to quickly go over this counter response essentially to the article. And it says, one of the most slept upon benefits of attending the University of Chicago is that they make you read Marx as part of the core curriculum. Marx, writing during the Industrial Revolution, predicted capitalism would periodically devour itself. Firms replace labor with machinery, sounds familiar, to boost profits, but competition diffuses the technology, drives prices to marginal cost, and the gains get competed away. That's kind of perfect competition, if you will, for your economics majors studying in college right now. Meanwhile, displaced workers lose purchasing power, hollowing out the demand for the whole system that it depends upon. Production rises, but no one can afford to buy what's produced, the contradiction between production and realization. Citrini's piece describes this exact dynamic, then declares there's no natural break. It's the most Marxist piece of financial analysis written in years and makes the same errors Marx did. Schumpeter offered the obvious rebuttal 80 years ago. Creative destruction doesn't just destroy. It creates industries we can't yet conceive of. Everyone in the replies is already making this point, and I think they're right. But the sharper rebuttal is hikes. Prices are the brakes. But Citrini says they don't exist. Who funds $200 billion a quarter in CapEx when equities are down 38%, private credit marks are in the 50s, and consumer demand has collapsed? Cost of capital rises, incremental build out becomes uneconomical, capital gets destroyed and reallocated. So the argument here is that if you're not getting an ROI on your investment, that capital gets gobbled up by the system. People realize that they made a mistake and it gets reallocated. Citrini also unknowingly describes Marxist proletarization of the polite bourgeoisie. The $180,000 product manager driving Uber is textbook, but the article claims this collapses consumer demand, and that's where it breaks. The top decile drives 50% of spending. So they make the argument that the spending is on the top half of like the white collar labor and wage scale, and that the blue collar and physical work is going to be fine. And the physical middle class the professional middle class gets crushed, but aggregate demand doesn't, because that top half is now the capital owning and spending class that creates the K-shaped economy. But that K-shaped economy, that top half actually stabilizes demand, they say is collapsing in the Citrini article. The petite bourgeoisie finds ways to reinvent itself, just like they did in the Industrial Revolution. The Citrini piece is excellent and worth reading, but history has repeatedly shown that periods of transformative productivity gains ultimately accrue to the consumers through lower prices, more leisure, and higher quality of life. Marx's error wasn't diagnosing the disruption, it was understanding the system's ability to adapt to it. So humans are highly adaptable, and I think that's being kind of missed here. And even if you look at the Industrial Revolution as an example, a lot of the gains that we're seeing were quality of life in the bottom half of wealth, where a rising tide lifts all ships, if you will.
Yeah, I find no fault with that rebuttal. And again, credit to the All In guys. They drive me nuts sometimes, but they can be insightful at times. And said it is easy to see the jobs that are going away because you can see them right now. It's what you can see versus what you can't see. You cannot see and you cannot conceive of the jobs that are going to be created. No one can explain it to you.
Right.
You cannot make the bull case and say, oh, these are all the new jobs that are going to be created, because they don't exist. Unless you're the person who has the vision to go make them, you cannot break it down for someone and give them an investment thesis on it specifically. You can specifically address the jobs that are going to be lost. You cannot specifically address the jobs that are coming out.
Speaking of the jobs that are coming out, one of the things I wanted to touch on is this narrative. I think it's clear that one of the best use cases for AI is coding, and there was a narrative that software, like the whole learn to code thing, was kind of mocked. That like just 4 years ago, a lot of people were saying learn to code.
Well, because they were mocking blue collar workers who
exactly
were out of work due to COVID.
Exactly. And now the script has absolutely flipped, and everyone's saying, well, AI is going to disrupt, coders. Narrative violation. What's this? Only 5% of the job cuts are AI related. And, you could make a good argument that the jobs that they do claim are AI related, particularly block, I don't believe those are AI related at all.
Yeah. He's taking the W there, blaming it on AI, and he's also gonna implicate the Team Red there as well. But it's really just, we know from his history that he sucks at right-sizing companies.
Sure does. I've got another chart for us here. Oh wait, this is not the right one.
And we know that, and viewers, we know that because X still works.
Right.
It's not even called Twitter anymore. It's now called X, and it works even better.
And that was prior to AI.
Today for iOS, and I'm jealous that I don't have it on Android yet. I don't know if you saw the preview.
I did not.
You can basically turn off topics now. Want to see less crypto? Want to see less politics?
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I saw that.
That's only available on iOS right now.
Here is here's the other chart I wanted to show here, which is software job openings for just software jobs. They're actually going up. So again, narrative violation relative to AI.
Hey, Dougie's applying for one on Monday. I have a phone interview for one on Monday.
That's great. I think we wanted to keep it moving towards DoorDash. I wanted to hear what Joseph Carlson said about DoorDash, and then you had a lot to say about the API plugins that I wanted to hear.
That will be displaced or disintermediated is DoorDash. And this was a stock that was hit hard yesterday. DoorDash was the poster child of a moat being disrupted by agents and their removal of friction. Now, DoorDash stock, since this release, is down about 6%. So let's go ahead and hear their argument of why DoorDash is going to be doomed when it comes to agents. Coding agents had collapsed the barrier to entry for launching a delivery app. So now you can code a delivery app very quickly. They say a competent developer could deploy a functional competitor in weeks, and dozens did, enticing drivers away from DoorDash and Uber Eats by passing 90 to 95% of the delivery fee through to the driver. So again, this is hypothetical. This hasn't happened, but they're saying, Now that vibe coding allows you to easily code things like delivery applications, which is true, make it easier to code things, you can basically make a competent, competent competitor in weeks to DoorDash and Uber Eats. Then those competent competitors cannot have the greed that DoorDash has. Instead, they can just pass the savings along to the driver. Multi-app dashboards let gig workers track incoming jobs from 20 or 30 different platforms at once, eliminating the lock-in that the incumbents depended upon. The market fragmented overnight and margins compressed to nearly nothing. Agents accelerated both sides of the destruction. They enabled the competitors and they used them. The DoorDash moat was literally, quote, you're hungry, you're lazy, this is the app on your home screen. And agents don't have a home screen. It checks DoorDash, it checks Uber Eats, the restaurant's own website, and 20 new vibe-coded alternatives so that it can pick the lowest fee and the fastest delivery time. Habitual app loyalty, the entire basis of the business model, simply didn't exist for the machine. This was oddly poetic, as perhaps the only example in this entire saga of agents doing a favor for the soon-to-be displaced white-collar workers when they ended up as delivery drivers. So there's the argument with DoorDash. It's basically that DoorDash and Uber Eats contain high margins. They charge a lot when you order from them. So an agent could come along and it can shop across all the different food delivery networks. And since you can buy...
Here comes the margin argument you were just talking about. So here's how he's going to address it. Wow, what a time to freeze. I'm sorry, Joseph.
I'd code a new app in just a couple of weeks. There's going to be a lot of them, 20 to 30 of them. Since the agent, which is like a ChatGPT or Gemini, since it can shop for you, frictionless, and it can go to all these different potential delivery companies or just the website of the restaurant itself, it can find the lowest prices, which will naturally compress the margins to zero. And that seems good at first glance. It seems a little bit convincing until you dive in a little bit deeper and highlight some of the big problems with this type of argument. One of the problems with this thought process is if you just put yourself in the customer's position here. Let's say that you're using ChatGPT and you're getting hungry. So you notice that you're hungry. In that case, you notice that you're hungry, but you don't know what you're going to eat. So you could tell ChatGPT, I'm hungry. And it can say, hey, you've liked these type of foods. Would you like to order them again? And you go, nah, what are some other foods out there? And then it has to assemble and create a list of foods that you can order. It has to bring in all the images. And then you have to say, hey, what about, you're typing this in again, you're typing all this in. What about restaurants that are within 30 minutes because I want to get it fast? Then it has to revise and give you another answer. Restaurants within...
You're not typing this in, you're having this conversation.
Say it again?
You're not typing this in, you're having this conversation via voice.
Yeah.
You're having to type all this in. That's not true. You're having all this conversation via voice.
Well, the point that he's making here is that like there's a lot of customizations that you're going to have to address. Like, do you want lettuce? Do you want pickles? Do you want tomatoes? Do you want extra this? Do you want hold this? Do you want add-ons? Do you want sides? Do you want a drink with that? Do you want the combo?
The first few times you do it, yes. But after a while, the AI knows whether you want lettuce, tomato, pickles, whether you have...
Yeah, but why would the AI not just build on top of DoorDash, though, where all that stuff is already an option?
Well, if it can do it for cheaper, if it can get our Chinese food order without me paying $12 in delivery fees, that's not including the tip.
So what about businesses?
But hey, the token cost might exceed $12. So that's one thing we don't know.
I think it won't exceed $12 by the time this is all said and done. But what about like the demand aggregation story as well? So I'm not sure how often this happens, but maybe it'll happen more often. How often do people like go on Uber with the intent to order some food and like that's where they browse? Do you think that happens at all? Like they see what's available for delivery?
I think they browse on the apps, not on Google itself or on Uber Eats, but I don't know. I'm not
of all those restaurants
poster child for the way that the new generation is buying things. I'm very Gen X. I grew up without the internet. Like I printed but I still used a home computer to write my papers in high school. We just printed it out on dot matrix printers.
Yeah, and maybe the API will be the new normal.
And you don't know what that is. A dot matrix printers had those runs up the side that had the holes in them. So after it printed, you had to tear those off the paper on the side.
Chill. You didn't have to call me out like that. Chill.
No, I'm just saying you have a way better life than we did.
Know which ones are good and which ones aren't. So you want 4-star reviews and up. So you have to type that in, now order them by reviews. Okay, so then you're on the restaurant level, you're looking at reviews of it, and let's say that you finally narrow down which restaurant you want to order from. Okay, you say, hey, ChatGPT, I want to order from this restaurant, but I don't know exactly what they have or what the prices are. Can you tell me that? And then it has to assemble a list of the menu from that restaurant, of all the different items, what the feature is, what the daily special is. Okay, so you have that assembled by ChatGPT now. And again, you're having ChatGPT build this menu on the fly as you continually type in. Now you're on like the 6th message now, and you say, okay, I want to get a number 3. I want to get that meal. But there's lots of customizations in every single meal from every single restaurant. For example, if you order from Five Guys, do you want the small burger or the normal one? Do you want the double patty or the one with cheese? Do you want the one with bacon? Do you want it to have
Well, you already
mayo,
said you want
ketchup?
the
Do you want
three,
to have
number
onions
3.
on it?
So all that stuff is kind of baked in the cake now. So he's cheating on the margins here on how complex this is. Once you said you want the number 3, you're not having to specify the size and the pattern. You've selected the large cheeseburger meal.
The thing is though, like the reality of like how humans order though, like it's pretty rare that like you just order a number 1 with no extra anything, no sides, no drink, no coupon.
Hey, one of my favorite movies of all time is When Harry Met Sally. I'm very aware, and I married my wife, so I'm very aware of specialty ordering. But
not just specialty ordering, like coupon pricing. You've got like delivery that is involved, particularly with DoorDash and Uber, where you have like weird address complexities, edge cases, you have gate codes, it's just like all this.
But again, your agent should know all that already and bake that into the cake.
It should, but you remember how terrible chatbots were when they first came in?
Oh yeah, man! A whole 24 months ago, they were so awful.
No, not those chatbots, not those ones. I'm talking about like when you contact customer service centers and they put some hi, how can I help you bullshit thing that was like clippy, and it was just totally useless before actually just begging it for a person.
They still are, but
but they're getting much better because of GPT. Okay.
But I agree with Fresh. DoorDash in particular is just ripe to get. Like there are like all you need is for Shopify to get into the restaurants or whatever their payment processor is and get that menu set up online. And yeah, so you have a conversation. You're not going to have any more complex conversation with the chat bot or the agent than you would with a waiter.
I just don't know
when it comes to making your order.
I just don't know if coding the application is the moat, because clearly it's not. So like
the application is not the moat. The app is not the moat, and that's what they're saying. The app is no longer
designing the moat itself is now. You could call it free. It's not technically free, but designing the app and building it is free. But aggregating the demand and getting users is not free.
Getting a network of drivers,
users, it's both. You need it from both sides to find the market equilibrium.
Right. So how do you get a network of drivers together? Because you're going to have basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to aggregate a pool of orders and a pool of people to fulfill the orders. If everyone is running their own agent, then that is not a pool of orders. And if all the drivers are running their own individual agents, that is not a pool of agents. It's just a bunch of individual agents.
So do you think there's going to be like an open source network for restaurants and delivery drivers?
You could do that.
Okay.
You could do that. And that could compete away. And then that thing just lives as a daemon, as its own that thing can then just live as its own agent in a Claude bot somewhere, and then all the bots just talk to that one, essentially a clearinghouse of delivery orders, which is kind of what Uber is becoming. Like Uber will deliver stuff to you. They don't care whether it's food or laundry that you sent to the cleaners, or something that went to an Amazon Dropbox and you need it picked up from there. Like Uber will do last mile delivery. They don't care. So to me is a stickier model. But somebody taking the steps to aggregate the demand for drivers, and aggregating the supply of drivers and putting them together, that matching engine.
Well, so if I can pause, so some of the holes that I'll try to poke in that are what happens when there is an issue between the restaurant and the driver, or there's like a dispute between the driver and the customer. You still wouldn't want that entity. And like this kind of goes back to a similar argument that was made with Visa, MasterCard, Amex, where you want that third party arbitrator there to sort out those sorts of things. Like, who's going to build the API to make sure that when I order my food from the Thai place down the street on this free API, that A, they're taking my credit card and not like selling it on the black market. I have to trust that that's not happening. B, that it's giving me a driver who's not going to like eat my food. And if they do decide to like eat my food or just not deliver and not show up at all, how do I get my money back? So like these are like a few of the issues, and between the driver and the merchant themselves, they'll have similar issues too. So that's kind of like the wrinkles that have to be worked out.
Bro, I am low key wanting to order some Chinese food right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll continue to roll the Carlson clip here.
Want to have pickles on it? There are hundreds of permutations and customizations within a single order. Literally hundreds of them in some cases. Chick-fil-A, just that restaurant, has hundreds of different customizations on a single order. All the way to what type of sauce you want to get. Are you going to prompt ChatGPT all the way through this process? By the time you're done, your thumbs will be sore from the amount of typing you do. You'll have to gone through so many different customization layers. And the idea that ChatGPT will just know, that's another thing that a lot of people argue here. They'll say, well, you've talked to ChatGPT so much, it'll know you inside and out. It'll know you better than yourself. I was a top 1% user of ChatGPT and Gemini in 2025. Top 1%, and I promise you, it has no clue what I want to eat tonight. It has no idea
it's going to be 100x better every
items,
6 months.
because it changes all the.
Say it again.
Remember how quickly these things are saying. You remember, Dougie's law, right?
Right.
Okay.
This is the worst it'll ever be.
The worst it'll ever be. And I'm extrapolating this from David Sachs. It's 100xing every 6 months. So Carlson is right. In 2025, he was the GOAT of users. No one cares.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we'll see how fast it happens and like how fast users actually move over. Maybe they run on the software that already exists. Maybe they build their own. Maybe it's a little bit of both. Speaking of stocks that are being disrupted, oh boy, Duolingo. I think it recovered back to like 100, but I'm quoting George Soros here. It's not about whether you're right or wrong that's important, but how much you make when you're right and how much you lose when you're wrong. So I wanted to pull up just a case study here, and I'm only sharing this because Joseph shared it himself, and he's very, very public, and I'm not trying to punch down on him or whatever. He's the bigger channel anyways, but he was very publicly in Duolingo, but he made it a really small position sizing. And I just wanted to show this to folks, just as he did, that when you've got a name that you have like a lower confidence in, you vote with your dollars here. So he actually wasn't hurt that bad at all by Duolingo imploding, essentially, because it was already his smallest position when he bought into it. Doug, I can tell you want to go.
Yeah, play it.
Oh, no. It looked like you wanted to talk. I'm sorry.
No,
There's no clip to play. This is just a screenshot from his ex showing his weighting of his portfolio. But Duolingo has obviously been crushed. Well, here's his comments about it. And he echoes the same thing. Portfolio weightings are important. If it's not a critical position and you don't have that, compelling feeling, and you're not, dying to back up the money truck, you don't have to. Like you can buy a little bit, not financial buys, not Duolingo. Yeah,
that's how I feel about Zeta. I don't love it. I think it's cheap.
Yeah, I have a small position in Zeta as well.
And I think those things are cheap.
We had API plugins, echo chambers. Oh, so here's one of the things I want to talk about, the Citrini article. And there was an accusation made around the potential motivations of said Citrini article. So this was posted by this account, Annie. And it basically accused the Citrini report of co-authoring, changing their co-authors to add a third co-author, and this was covered on All In. And this is an SEC registered hedge fund that decided to go short, and they held short positions in the companies that the report named, like DoorDash and MasterCard.
This needs to be disclosed in the Citrini article to start with.
It should be.
These guys should go to jail.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, but it doesn't feel right.
$500 million, and they should go to jail.
Certainly doesn't feel right, does it? So, yeah. I don't know what to say about that. What do you say? You know,
I think $500,000 is significant enough damages that somebody should go to jail, and that's just me.
That's just you. That's right. That's just your side of things. You know, who knows how else much money people lost here.
Yeah, I'm sure people lost way more than me. I'm just selfish like that.
Speaking of the whole SaaS disruption, we're smooth transitioning here. Look at this. What a host. He's getting better and better every day. This is Dario.
Moderator.
Say, world's greatest
he has
moderator.
to deal with me. So
this is Dario. And this was a great interview. I would recommend you guys watch it. Basically, what's going on with Anthropic. Here, let me get this off the screen. We can tee it up here first. Have a little chit chat about it. Anthropic decided, and this is the story as it goes, as it unfolded here. Don't hate me. But, you know, the Department of War said that they wanted to use Anthropic's models. Anthropic is trying to put terms of use on it, saying that they don't want two specific things. That's not quite what the Department of War said. They basically said if they needed to use an LLM to shoot down a nuclear bomb that was headed their way in the form of a ballistic missile, would you shoot it down, or would you have to call Dario himself and have to have a committee meeting about it? Obviously, that wouldn't work, because if you have 5,000 plus contractors of the Department of War, and every single one of them had a terms of service that you can use our product for X but not for Y, then you'd have to create this big giant matrix, and then you'd never get anything done, whereas other countries are not doing that. So it seems like Anthropic is the first one to sort of ask for this, but what they're asking for is for no mass surveillance and no autonomous trigger pulling, essentially. So no lethal acts or strikes where there's not a human involved, where you can trace back the human logic to the decision that was made. So with all that teed up, well, Dougie, I'll actually let you chime in here before we roll the clip. Does that about cover most of it?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Doesn't tell the U.S. military what to do with that aircraft. How is this any
The example here is Boeing. Boeing doesn't tell the military what to do with the aircraft.
different?
Again, I would say two ways that it's different. One, I would point again to the newness of the technology, right? When a technology is well established, then I mean, there are lots of technical things about aircrafts, but I think general has a pretty good understanding of how an aircraft works. Aircrafts have been around for a long time.
But there's plenty of innovation inside the aerospace industry.
Sure, but not at the pace that we see with AI. AI is moving so fast. I've talked often about how AI is on an exponential trend. The models, the amount of computation that goes into the models doubles every 4 months. we have never seen anything like this pace of invasion.
But if that pace continues apace,
Yes.
then the US government will never be caught up. So how does that logic apply if you have long argued that you want to work with the US government to provide, the appropriate national security? If it's going to be such a fast development for the foreseeable future, Congress can't catch up.
Well,
then why turn your back on this?
I think there's only catching up once, right? So the pace of the technology is fast. The issues that arise are few, but very important. Again, we only have two of these: domestic mass surveillance, fully autonomous weapons. We need to have a conversation with Congress to help them understand some of the risks associated with it. Again, this is the most American thing in the world. No one wants to be spied on by the US government. No one wants to be spied on by the US government.
At the exact same time.
What do you think? You believe him?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, I don't want to be spied on by the government.
Sure.
He wants to be a folk hero for saying he's not spying on people.
So do you think this is for his company or for him?
It's for him. I mean, he's always been the bro is a Marxist, okay? He's an AI doomer Marxist. Okay, just you got to understand who you're dealing with. And once you understand that, then you can, I mean, look, this is like the Kash Patel video, all right, with him, drinking beers. People trying to get enraged by that. And I was like, you just can't make me care about this. This is a bro being a dude. Like,
it's a nothing.
Yeah, he took the FBI jet. He has to pay it back. That's the rules. But it's allowed. You can't make me care about this. Like, there's things you could say that the FBI director is doing wrong that I might care about. This ain't one of them. This is the same thing. You can't make me care about what Dario thinks. Like, is Anthropic that much better than Grok or God forbid, ChatGPT? For what we're using it for, which is to interface with Palantir. You can't make me care about this. It's an LLM. It's a commodity.
Here's why
you're basically saying we can't use DoorDash, so we'll use Uber Eats. Okay, fine. We can't use DoorDash. We'll use we'll use Uber Eats instead. You can't make me care.
Here's why I care about it, because of tweets like this. So, friend of the show, friend of the program, as Pat McAfee says, Stephen Fiorillo, he is paying Claude AI because he's actually getting use out of it. Now, Steve is an Excel wizard, but he's not like your Zoomer first adapter type person. And Matt Money, who you guys also know, is all over this type of stuff, and he's building his own website.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Like,
he doesn't want it shared yet, but he's building awesome stuff.
Yeah, he's in the lab, and he's making it happen. Stuff that would have taken a team of people to build. So when we talk about Claude, if they play their cards wrong, they're not going to be able to get any government work. And is this a bluff by the Trump administration? Is this a real growth concern? And if so, the second consideration that I'll now bring into play is Amazon just invested $50 billion into Claude. No, sorry, OpenAI. But Amazon is a huge owner of Claude. Of Anthropic.
Monday morning, short it.
No, I own too much Amazon. Are you kidding me?
Sell it then.
No way.
No, I'm just kidding. No, but you can't make me care about this. The LLMs are commodities. Yeah, Steve said this is the best one. But then it's like almost the Homer Simpson meme. It's the best one so far.
Do you not believe, though, that there's an economies of scale barrier to entry because of the entry cost being so high that you need X amount of dollars of compute before you're any good at all relative to the current competition?
Yeah, but we have 5 closed sources and God knows how many open source ones right now that are adequate.
But they're all Chinese though. They're not secure.
On par with Claude or soon to be superior to Claude, to whatever version Claude is now.
They're not secure though. That's the problem because they're Chinese models mostly, the open ones.
Well, but the open, okay, but you're not talking shit about open source because they're not secure, right?
Well, what I'm saying is
the most secure software because you know what the code is.
Yeah, but you always like
There's no yeah but. There is no yeah but. The code
was created by Chinese people mostly.
But the code is open source, so you can look at the code.
Okay, so we're good. There's no backdoor.
You actually have someone. If you run the code without looking at it, yeah, then you're subject to a problem. But when you have presumably, when you have the resources of the United States federal government and the Department of War, that's so tricky to say, you can validate the security of any open source model before you run it by checking the code. Like the code is all there. You can read it all.
But like, look, if we're trying to catch Maduro,
yeah, there's always
we're not doing that mission on DeepSeek, right? Like,
no, but Siege is right. There's always a backdoor. But if Microsoft could write a backdoor into Windows, and the DOW would never know because it was compiled and run and blah 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 blah, and it's just been sits dormant and they can't find a way to activate it. If you can read the code, you have a higher level of confidence of the security.
Or we could just have an American company that does it.
Well, we just caught a U.S. fighter pilot consulting for the CCCP last week on U.S. tactics, so that's not a guarantee either.
Do I want to ask?
We've got a San Franciscan-born American athlete competing for China, and we've got American pilots training Chinese fighter pilots.
And I'm sure we have at least a few Democrats who. Okay, I'm not gonna go
there. They're sending telegram messages to Iranians right now, telling them where the strikes are coming next.
Okay, good. Smooth transition. Iran. So for those of you who live under a rock, Dougie will fill us in to get us up to speed here.
So, yay, Persia, I guess. Congrats. We helped you take out the guy you guys could have taken out anytime in the last 40 years in your own country. Good luck. That's how I feel about it. Like, we'll help you, learn and read and write English and let us know when you get a stock market set up. We'll send people to buy your stocks, but
so
you're not sending in special forces to help you police your people.
So you don't want boots on the ground. You don't want any settlement or.
I'm fine with air. You can't make me care about airstrikes, but yeah, I don't want boots on the ground.
Sure. I think that's fair.
Hey, look,
the campaign promises that he's made.
Okay, so here's the crazy thing, right? And so this is where I don't know if DJT is crazy like a fox, as smart as a fox, or just so much chaos that he gets lucky every once in a while. He just had the Board of Peace, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks? It feels like last year. But it was like half the Middle East was there. So presumably all these people are now on board with whatever Trump does in the Middle East, and he goes after Iran. But hey, look, when Iran was striking back, they were shooting at Bahrain and Qatar. So they're not making any friends. Just saying. If Trump made a whole bunch of friends in the Middle East to surround Iran, to make sure that there's no blowback on the United States, because we have all the surrounding nations in our pocket this time, and we can go for Iran, then that's awesome. Furthermore, okay, so
he's bringing up the furthermore Saturday night.
There's a whole other layer of this. If you are a Democrat and you have had at any time in the last 5 years,
tell him, Dougie,
blue and yellow flag in your Twitter bio, and you're mad about Trump attacking Iran, you need to STFU right now. You have proven yourself to be a seriously unserious person. Where are all the munitions that the Russians are launching against the Ukrainians made? They're made in Iran. In a perverse Uno reverse card, Iran is making the drones and the missiles and the cruise missiles that the Russians are launching against Ukraine.
Said differently, if you want Ukraine to win the war, getting rid of the Ayatollah does that, because they're supplying the Russians. Just for those of us who struggle with 2 times 2. Yeah, really interesting stuff. I hope Iran is able to settle down and they're able to figure things out. Regime change has like a black eye in the past, just because 25 years ago it didn't end so well and it was like a forever war. I don't think that's what that is. I think that's what a lot of public opinion is afraid that that's what it's going to become. But, I think this is going to be a replay of what happened in June. I think, we could see red on Monday or even Tuesday.
Nothing burger by Friday.
I just, again, not financial advice, but like, I'm not scared of that dip personally, because things will settle down. The region will stabilize. And ultimately, long term, this is a good thing, because the largest global sponsor of terrorism is now taken out of the picture, and maybe the region will stabilize and the Strait of Hormuz will finally come back to normal. And, in addition to that, China will maybe think twice about what they do with Taiwan now that we're reestablishing global hegemony, where we are the big dog in the yard.
Yeah. Look, last night at midnight, when this stuff was being announced, Solana, I don't have the Bitcoin price, I just have the Solana chart up right now. It dove 8.8% from 11 to 12 and bottomed at 77.55. It is currently at $88. This thing is already over. Donald Trump has figured out as well. Don't do this shit on Friday and Saturday. Do not do it during the trading week.
Yeah, give the market time to digest.
It's hilarious.
So there's the strike right here.
Yeah, Lackability says the Ayatollah. We certainly have reports that the Ayatollah was killed. I haven't heard that out of Iran yet. I've only heard that from United States and Israeli media, including the president, which you would think is reliable, but we all saw him predict a hurricane. So we'll wait and see on that. But so we'll wait and see what Iran actually does. But I think June's right. Someone always knows. That's why I think Palantir was surging when the rest of the market. Well, it wasn't surging, but the rest of the market was tanking hard, and Palantir was green. So
or they just took like a probabilistic approach to it, right? If there's a 30% chance that it happens, sell 1 or 2% of your holdings to hedge, right? And if it doesn't happen over the weekend, you buy back in on Monday. There's a lot of active trader firms that will take approaches like that.
But I don't understand why they do that, because what we've learned under this administration especially is buy the geopolitical dip, especially if there's explosions.
Yeah, I mean, so far it's worked. That doesn't necessarily mean it'll always work, right?
But anyway, it already looks like the market will recover. And I mean, is the world better off without the Ayatollah? I think so. But I'm also not prepared I'm not prepared to get in a nation building thing.
Right.
I think we have plenty of there are plenty of Iranian Americans that we have already prepared to go back home to their native country and rebuild that country all on their own. They should be able to take just enough American culture, mix it with the Persian culture, and get that nation back on its feet. I would love to see that. I would love to go visit a vibrant Persia before, I go toes up. But because I've always heard that it was a really amazing place in the middle of the 20th century, early middle 20th century. So like
Persians are fired up, dude. Everyone's excited. Like all over the world, if you came from Iran and you got out of there before or even after the Islamic regime, like those people are fired up, which is really funny to see.
The Iraqis were fired up when we first went in and took out the Saddam Hussein regime. And then if you stay long enough, you become the villain. So let's not even stay. You
just have to let them figure it out. That's the truth. They have to figure it out themselves. Otherwise, it doesn't hold.
Send in some diplomats, send in some people to teach them how to do finance if they need that. I think there's plenty of wealthy enough Persian Americans as it is in the U.S. side of the oil business who can go over there and help them stand up their their energy economy and get that thing pumping. You talk about low oil prices, bro, $2.20 per gallon out here in good old Tejas. It can only get lower as, if Iranian crude comes online and becomes legal.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the part that I found interesting was, China and Russia both are friends of Iran, and China specifically has a close relationship with them, giving them certain weapons and technology, and China buys most of Iran's oil. So, by most of, I mean 85 to 90% of their oil. So China gets the benefit of receiving cheap input cost to everything that they need for their economy, and what Iran receives is the technology that China has to be able to kill the infidel, and death to America and death to Israel. Now,
perversely, China is getting super cheap oil because it's illegal to sell anywhere else. So
right, because
China
of sanctions.
has all the pricing power there. If Iran can sell it on the open market, they'll actually get more money as global prices come down because of the Iranian supply coming online. But Iran in particular will be able to sell their product for more than they have been.
That's exactly right.
So they'll benefit, and so will overall everyone's prices will come down, and Iran's prices will go up. China will be the one that gets screwed because they have to pay more for their oil. They've lost their single purchaser pricing power.
And not only that, not just the economic side of it, but to connect the dots, you have basically Iran doing China's dirty work when they are sponsoring terrorism and sending terrorists into the West, whether that be Europe or the United States or Canada. They are, laying the groundwork for these, Islamic terrorist regimes that take the extreme approach to things, that are just mass migrating and then standing up Sharia law, which is destabilizing the West. And they're working in concert with the Chinese to be able to do that and make that happen. So it feels to me like a bit of a Cold War here between Russia, Iran, China versus the West and its allies. And you could maybe even include the BRICS nations in that, although it doesn't seem that Brazil and India particularly care. They just kind of want to have their independence and be left alone. But, taking out Iran, who is basically the hitman for these other two superpowers, this seems like an important step that is kind of being underappreciated at the moment. And I know a lot of the public discourse has been around like, okay, this guy ran as the president of peace. He just had the board of peace. He was like the non-interventionalist candidate. But I think people need to be realistic about the fact that if you try to negotiate with someone who's not willing to negotiate with you at all, like it takes two to make a deal. I can tell a 3-year-old that they need to brush their teeth until I'm blue in the face. I'll be there for 3.5 hours while they, work off their sugar high, but I'm not going to win that argument. You can't win argument with people who are motivated by religious fervor and death to America, death to Israel, who like in the Iranian government, they literally had like a death to America, gathering within their chambers where they were like lighting American flags on fire, and they're the largest state sponsor of terrorism. You've got Hamas, October 7, just event after event after event. Like, how long are you meant to be getting punched in the face before you eventually say, hey, like, we're not going to take this anymore? The people of Iran deserve their country back, especially after they just killed 30,000. That's larger than oh gosh, I'm trying to think.
Stadium. An NBA stadium.
NBA stadium. I was trying to think of the Tiananmen Square, right? That's larger than Tiananmen Square. So to all the people who want to say that we need to protect our multicultural friends, it's like, okay, where were you? You guys did all this bitching and moaning about Gaza, about how many people died there, which it turns out the reports were incorrect. They learned nothing at all. Most of the people who died in that Gaza conflict were terrorists because Hamas themselves admitted 80% of the casualties were combatants, i.e. Hamas terrorists. So why is it that you guys make all that fuss about supposedly 50,000 that got revised down further than that and got concentrated into combatants themselves? But then when the Islamic regime kills 30,000 people, we don't hear anything from you guys at all. As a matter of fact, when we try to give the country back to people, you have people saying this is an illegal attack and that this is about sovereignty. Guys, there's nothing sovereign about an unelected theocratic authoritarian government that thinks that they want to see if gay people can fly, and they throw them off of buildings. They don't give women rights. That they're, again, have to drill this point home, largest state-sponsored terrorism program in the world. Why do we have to deal with this? And China funds a lot of it. They give Iran money for infrastructure projects, and Iran and Russia came out against this today, where they said, they're making their appeal to the UN. How can the United States do this attack? This is, this is against their sovereignty. Guys, China is, I would really like them to see them keep this attitude when it comes time to talk about the sovereignty of Taiwan. Okay, if we were talking about Taiwan and not Iran, China would have a very different, stance on this. So it feels like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So that's what I found interesting about this whole dynamic. Sorry to ramble on there, Doug. You got some snacks. What you got there?
Some blueberries.
Some blueberries. Oh, how fitting.
Yeah. No, it wasn't a ramble. It was this a pretty good breakdown of the situation there. There's really
deep in thought.
No, it's just I don't
want to.
I was gonna I was just gonna end up reiterating a lot of what you said. So, I don't need to restate something you already covered.
Okay, fair enough. To lighten things up a little bit, did you want to talk some Netflix, some Peace Guy, some Warner Brothers?
I mean, sure, we can talk about that, but
well, you had some thoughts on it, right? Because they're going to be loaded up with debt. Now that Netflix
Yeah.
basically told Warner Brothers, hey, if you want to go see your ex, go see your ex.
And
then
it's
the
the
ex
easiest
showed up.
money Netflix ever made, but it's also a deal Paramount absolutely had to do. Because if, it would have been like letting Apple, like, it would have been like Microsoft letting Apple buy Google. Okay. Just like, you can't do it. Couldn't do it. That obviously that never was an issue, but it feels like that would have been the case. So, like, yeah, I think Chris had a really funny take, and it was like, okay, yeah, yeah, Paramount, y'all buy Warner Brothers with all your debt, and we'll just buy y'all in 10 years when you go bankrupt, or 5 years when you go bankrupt.
Because they're going to be like
And we'll get you
times-
both for pennies on the dollar. We'll probably pay $3 billion, which is the breakup fee you just paid us for both of you, in 5 years. And maybe he's right, but in the meantime, for Paramount to continue competing, they couldn't get checkmated, and so that's all they did is they avoided checkmate at a pretty high cost.
Now it's going to be like 8 to 10 times, depending on how the math shakes out, but 8 to 10 times EBITDA.
Yeah.
Relative to the long-term debt, because Paramount already has a significant amount of debt, and so does Warner Brothers. So they're just going to be stacking debt on top of debt. One thing that I wanted to note here is I thought it was interesting all the regulators coming out in advance of this when, as discussed on prior shows, Netflix plus Warner Brothers would have actually been smaller percentage of market share than Paramount plus Warner Brothers. Another key factor there is that Paramount plus Warner Brothers, they each have their own studio. Netflix does not have their own studio. So in consolidation, when Paramount closes on Warner Brothers, one of those two studios is going to be getting consolidated into hopefully what is one bigger studio, but maybe they just close one of them. So you're also going to have regulators coming out against that deal as well. Now, Steve, shout out to Steve. He called this one on the money. He knew, dude. He smelled it. I smelled it partially too because Netflix. I knew that there was a good chance that they didn't get the deal, and that was reflected in the betting markets. But Steve called the fact that Netflix was not going to get this deal specifically because the Ellison family is close to Donald Trump, and that you have just a large concentration of public opinion and power and media reporting, which has been obviously a large issue with the mainstream relative to where the White House stands on a lot of things. The ability to buy that screen time and maybe, I don't know if you would say control the narrative, but just make sure that you're getting a fair shake, or control the narrative. We'll see what happens. They've yet to close on them. I don't have a crystal ball here, but on one side you have them buying power potentially to control that part of the media, which the left is not going to like. On the other hand, you could say that they're so debt ridden that is Netflix going to get to buy them later after that combined business has failed, or are they going to be just in a spot where Netflix gets to license that content anyways from the what would be zombie company? So it's really shaking out to be interesting. I think Dougie ran off on me here. So, he's back.
No, I'm here. I just didn't want to.
Mr. Blueberry chomping away.
Yeah, I just didn't want to hit y'all up with doing sounds. So couple of points here. This was not hard to see. Again, Paramount was fighting for their lives. Ultimately, this is good for the consumer of entertainment, though. And by that, I mean people who actually watch movies and like movies, and not people who scroll through their phones while whatever movie they picked on Netflix is playing. So it is good. It is good long-term for culture. Paramount has shown that they know how to make shows and build universes.
HBO
and
as well.
Netflix has proven that they do not.
Right.
So,
and I think that
as a fan of the properties that were for sale here, that I know our boy Amit completely discounts, but he doesn't value any of that stuff anyway because he hasn't watched it. So
it's good IP.
So maybe he can look at it fairly without caring about it. But as someone who cares about the media itself, it's in better hands with Paramount than it would have been in Netflix. Now we will know, to your point, on whether this was about political control of the media and related to June's post here. We will know very rapidly what the state is. And does Scott Jennings get his own show at 8 p.m. on CNN?
I would not be surprised to see that at all, to be honest.
That should be the Poly Market hit right now. But that will be your indicator.
I'm actually looking to see right now if that's a thing. Oh, White House press secretary. That's a market. Look at this. This is so shocking. I have to take my glasses off. No. Oh, it didn't work. Okay, so this was a poll ahead of time. Well, this was before he became president. It must have been. You see the date here? June 30th. He was on the list, though. Look at that. He was the favorite there for a good point in time. Basically, prior to the election, he was the favorite to be press secretary. Interesting. So I'll see Jennings, Poly Market, own show. Oh, look at this. Threads. Scott Jennings has his own show on CNN. Big changes with new take. Oh, no, this is unverified. Okay, never listen to me. I do like that idea, though. I do really like
that. That's just how you tell. I mean, so and what that tells you is they're going to try to make money. Now, there's some argument to be made, and part of me definitely agrees with it, that a news organization should not be solely about profit. They should be about telling the truth, regardless of who is in power and who they have connections with. Because if you're a fair information broker, both sides will play with you. Now, what we know is that CNN is not a fair information broker, and both sides do not play. But if they can just get back to fair, the left will lose their mind because they're used to being in control of the narrative completely.
Well, and the function there is if you incite people and make them angry, it drives ratings because you're more likely to continue watching. And then those ratings drive ads, and those ads make you more money. Therefore, you're just constantly being rage baited. So I'm not sure how you get out of that. Do you think you have a solution for that? It's a hard question.
You're competing with the rage bait on X, and Facebook. So I mean, I don't know if you can compete yourself out of that with a more expensive product, a far more expensive product to generate.
And most stuff on your phone, especially like YouTube and whatnot, you just don't have ads on it. Whereas you watch 30-minute programming and 11 minutes of it is going to be ads. It's kind of it just seems like a bad shake.
But do you just start sourcing? Okay, imagine reboot an entire news organization from scratch. Fire everybody.
Okay.
Now, where do you start getting feeds and information coming into your organization? X, and YouTube.
But you're still gonna have like reporters on the ground and whatnot, right?
No. You fired everybody, but you still need information. Where are you getting it from? X and YouTube. You just start reposting that. So then you hire a few people back to start filtering for what is just seen on X and YouTube, and maybe you bring on some of those people to broadcast on your stream, on your airwaves while they're streaming on. I mean, imagine if CNBC fired all their morning people and they just replayed Amit's Morning Open.
So it almost sounds like what you're wanting is almost like for them to take like a combination of people from The Blaze, One American News Network, Newsmax, and
no, because those are their own organizations.
Yeah, but like you
could
poach from those organizations the talent and then put them on CNN.
Yeah, well, you're just standing up a thing you just got rid of.
Well, you want to get rid of it. There's brain value, and like a lot of people already have CNN that would watch it.
Sorry, I'm just playing out the thought exercise of if you fired everybody and you're not doing like linear TV news the way it's been done anymore, just go get the YouTube creators who are doing this for mostly for free, except for YouTube revenue, right? And just tell them you'll pay to run their stream on your channel.
Yeah.
Like I said, imagine if CNBC fired all their morning people and like, nah, you know what? Amit is better than us anyway. We'll pay him. You know, we'll pay Amit $1 million a day, or not a day. We'll pay Amit $1 million a month, and that's way cheaper than whatever we were doing for the same, 4 hours of morning coverage. He's already doing it.
Sure. Yeah. There's an Amit out there for geopolitics. I'm sure there's an Amit out there for all sorts of things.
Lots of citizen journalism and stuff. What's the kid's name? Nick
Shirley.
Nick Shirley. Yeah. Like why does he not have his own show on CNN or something already? I mean, he's got a YouTube channel. Like just run. You don't even have to set him up with a studio show and blah blah blah. Just run what he's already running.
Those assets.
Yeah, just run what he's already running. You just become an aggregator, and maybe you get competed away in the long term. But at least in the short term, you have slashed your expenses. And you still have the advertising, so you still have the money to attract the talent.
Can we talk about a poll that made me a little bit sad?
Sure.
This is a Gallup poll. Pride in being American by political party. And Republicans hasn't really changed in quite some time. And you can see what's going on with the middle there and the Democrats. Made me sad because to me this is kind of like evidence that people are buying the propaganda that like America is an oppressive country and that we don't have rights, and that that they're overblowing a lot of the issues that I think are actually being caused by some of the socialism and like a lot of these failed policies that are happening in LA, Chicago, New York, and then they're getting upset that things aren't going their way in their particular states and cities. But it's really just a result of them shooting themselves in the foot a little bit. And then they they make themselves the victim a little bit and blame America and say that the system is broken when actually there's nothing wrong with the system at all. They've just decided to break it themselves and then blame the system. I would like I stated at the beginning of the show, I would really like to see the Democrats rebrand themselves a little bit, because I would like to have two competent parties that are electable, and two parties that love America and want to work for the American people and not just their highest bidder.
Well, what your chart represents is the ideological capture of the education system and the media.
I would argue those are two big causes of the results that we're seeing on that chart. Yeah. So,
and I got news for you. The people who declare themselves as independents aren't. Because it says, Democrats, independents, and Republicans. The people who everyone likes to say they're independents. JCal likes to say he's an independent, but we know he's not.
Well, I think some of those probably are independents, but we know that certainly some of them aren't.
Just because you register as independent, that all that tells me is that you're trying to declare yourself as somehow morally superior to anyone else because you haven't picked a side.
I mean, I don't pick a side. I identify as an independent because I identify as like that evidence-based, and whatever I see that seems like the most pertinent issue that's happening at that time, I have to play the cards that I'm dealt. So I feel like if I'm not independent, I feel like I'm being tribal. So I just kind of take the information as it comes. Just like, you know how they say, like, don't marry a stock, right? Like, don't get emotional to a stock. Like, that's also how I kind of feel about voting, that if you're captured by one party or another and you're not willing to change your vote, then why would the party bother going after your vote? If they already have your vote, they're not going to work for you. I kind of take that approach to it.
But it's such the whole thing of Republican, Democrat, Independent is so disingenuous anyway. Do you know a single person who like participates in party politics, like in your normal life? And by party I mean people who go to the party conventions and write the party platform that gets submitted from the local level all the way up. I don't know anyone like that.
Yeah, I knew one person like that. He was a Democrat. And
okay, so you know one person.
Oh,
so
dude.
Everyone else in your life should be an independent, and you know one Democrat.
He fit the stereotype. He went to a Kamala event before the election and tried to convince me that Kamala was the second coming of Obama. And I had to set him straight and let him know that Obama was an S-tier politician with mad charisma who knew what the people wanted to hear, and that Kamala was, we'll be nice here and say, not that. So, yeah, it's just, and to fit the stereotype, of course, because I disagreed with him, all the names started flying left and right, which has been kind of my issue with that side of the aisle, is that you can't even have a simple discussion anymore without names flying left and right. Like, we can't even get to the conversation before you're trying to assassinate my character. And that to me is just not acceptable. Like when you can't even have the conversation, like there's adults that I've had conversations with that if you mention the Orange Man, you just see steam coming out of their ears and like they lose 30 IQ points immediately. Like you can't converse with them. They turn into fucking children. And I don't want that for the country anymore. So I'm definitely looking forward to 28, despite like actually liking a lot of the policies that are happening in the second term. The first term wasn't as effective. Second term, we're doing better. But to move past the Trump era, I'm sure they'll be able to vilify whoever the next RNC candidate wins the primary. But, it won't be so much TDS anymore. They'll have to change the narrative. And I think
because you already had literally Hitler, right? So you can't have literally Hitler again.
Exactly. Yeah, you already cried wolf essentially.
But yeah, they will. But they will.
They will. Like, especially if it's Vance. But like if it's Rubio, how are you gonna cry wolf? Right? Like Rubio existed before Trump politics came into the picture. So it's certainly interesting. What else did we have on the docket? I think we basically got through just about all of it. Did we not?
Can we talk about how amazing a CEO Jensen is?
Oh, yeah. Oh, we played that, Jensen.
That happened. Right? Oh, yeah.
Okay. Oh. Yeah, we wanted to talk about the NVIDIA earnings, right? You want me to pull up
we
some
should
numbers?
mention it, and then the fact that the stock has dumped like from 200 to 177 with no sign of bottoming. Like, come on, people, this is ridiculous. Like, I've been buying this dip, but now I'm like, okay, hold up, because people are about to get real stupid, and you're gonna get a great buy on Nvidia stock here very shortly. And I know that there are people in our, even in our friend group that are like, it's cyclical, you can't buy this. No, you don't understand. Nvidia is not a cyclical company anymore. They're not just chips.
Yeah, it does seem
They're
like the
the
demand is
chips,
sustained.
and they're like 3 of the 5 layers of the software stack now. So, like, sorry, that narrative is over.
I mean, like, look at these numbers. Like, if you just go back like 4 years ago, like, this is insane what they're doing right now.
Just look at the delta between the last bar and the one before it.
32 million up to 43.
That's crazy.
That is a 94% year over year increase, and what, a 25%, essentially 25% quarter over quarter net income jump.
Yeah, and this last 2 weeks, the market has decided that growth is it's almost like a negative indicator for stock performance. Like, the better your growth is, the more we're selling your stock.
Check out what I found here. Okay, this is shareholder equity book value. Look at this. What are we looking at here? They added 39. Am I reading that right? Math? $39 billion of book value in 1 quarter.
Wow.
People sold the stock. What? Huh?
They sold it this week. Like, they waited till after the earnings to sell this. I don't have enough. I mean, there are companies right now that, well, just because of my situation, I've had to move out of growth. A large portion of my portfolio out of growth. And I just can't help feeling like I am going to lose out on this next incredible run. I do think it's fair to say we have learned one lesson, and this may be appropriate, is you cannot be the largest company in the world and get the best multiples.
Because no tree grows to the sky.
Be the largest market cap at the same time and be able to get what would be considered fair multiples.
And is that just a function of the fact that, like, when
you're the
biggest,
because
company,
you're the biggest, everybody thinks you're the highest risk. It's like, but you're the big, like, you're the giant. You're not the 600-pound gorilla. You're the 6,000-pound gorilla now.
So something that I thought was interesting about that is we know that NVIDIA's growth is essentially capped at the higher end of things because they can only have as much demand for their product as there is essentially operating cash flow for their major customers. So they're reliant essentially on the big 5 companies, Amazon, Google, Meta, Oracle, and Microsoft, for their cash flow. So I wanted to pull that up here and just show you guys that the market is not really willing, and this is quarterly. So
XAI is buying the crap out of their product, and they're nowhere near a hyperscaler.
Right, that too. But I think they're kind of like the odd ones out because they're in the private market. But if you look at
who else can do it, like,
well, just look. So this is the free cash flow. So, like, Amazon is the classic example for this. Microsoft and Google and Meta are going through it too. But I think Amazon has really been the poster child for, like, oh my God, like, negative or even free cash flow. Like, what are we going to do? The sky's falling. Okay, so if we look at the operating cash flow, and I know Steve talks about this all the time, as long as this operating cash flow number continues to go up, that's additional money that they can throw at capex. So in this example here, this time last year they had 115 billion. Now they have 139. So that's another $20 billion that they can throw into capex without their free cash flow taking a hit. Which
Was
again,
that last part by percentage or by number? I forget.
By number. So look, if they went from 100,
no, not this one, the one before that, the free cash flow.
The free cash flow. This is absolute dollar amount.
Okay.
So you can see it trending down as they've continued to really lean into the opportunity, which again, no one believes.
Like you can't make me hate this.
Yeah. It's hard to hate it because Jassy, people forget, like Jassy is literally the reason that AWS is the monster behemoth that it is. And AWS runs at something like 36% operating margin. Yeah, there it is, 36% operating margin for AWS. So like, why would you not want to invest in this opportunity when you already know that your remaining performance obligations are $244 billion and you have more on the way with Anthropic and OpenAI, both doing deals specifically with AWS? It's like this is not going to stop anytime soon. You already know the compute demand is going to be there. Buy the damn product and grow your business and have lock-in for the next decade. That's how I feel about it. So
all of the Mag 7 right now to me are deals. Like with perversely, the Google is the least. Somehow Google is the least attractive option by price right now. But if you had but Microsoft is so cheap at this point.
But like all of them have operating
cash flows. Microsoft is so cheap.
I mean, they've doubled their operating cash flows in the last 3 years. This
is where all the money is still going, people. Like, why are you selling this off? So it's like maybe the money doesn't all stay there, but it all moves through these guys. So if they're not the ones that are holding on to the cash at the end of the day, they're the ones deciding where the cash gets spent. And that power in and of itself has its own value.
Again, with all these, they've all doubled their cash flow in the last 36 months.
Yeah. They get to decide who the winners are out of their vendors and suppliers. Like at that next level in the stack. And that is its own superpower.
So look at this. Isn't this crazy? So they spent trailing 12 months, Google spent $91 billion on CapEx. And look at this, their free cash flow, even after that $91 billion, they still had $73 billion of free cash flow.
Killing it.
This is why, guys, when I say, again, can't hammer this home enough, not investment advice, but when I go to bed and I lay my head on the pillow with 36% of my portfolio in Google, this is why I don't have an issue with it at all. I think that they should pursue the opportunity when the cloud is growing at make that 48% cloud growth is. So with that being the limiter, like you just have to trust that these companies are going to continue with their operating cash flow higher. And with that continuing higher, that means more money that they can reinvest back into Broadcom, NVIDIA, TSM, the whole AI value chain there. I did have something else to share about NVIDIA earnings that I thought was interesting. Just a small footnote, but I did want to chat about it because a lot of people think of NVIDIA as strictly a chip company. And Jensen, if you listen to him closely, he tries to do some education around that NVIDIA, similar to Broadcom, where you've got networking. NVIDIA is also a networking company. They're an AI infrastructure company, really at the high level. So you've got the compute on the left-hand side, which is still, the majority of their business. But look at this networking. They've over tripled. They almost 4x'd their networking revenue in 12 months. Is this not one of like the most insane charts you've ever seen?
That's, again, like, I am so happy to have the NVIDIA position I have. I wish I had more. I wish I could hold more. But I'm such a huge fan of Jensen. People who have thought that NVIDIA was cyclical because it was a semi do not understand what that company does and how he runs it differently than other chip manufacturers.
And they also, I think they're fundamentally misunderstanding the fact that this is a sustained tailwind of compute demand, and that there's not really a realistic scenario at all where we go negative in compute. Like, we're going to need more in 26 than we needed in 25. We're going to need more in 27 than we do in 26. Like,
anybody who starts a new business is additional compute demand, regardless of what that business is. If they're using a service online that is hosted by any one of these hyperscalers, that is additional compute demand. It could be a laundromat and you just need to set up an email address to do business with. That is additional compute demand.
This is compute demand doubling every 7 months.
Yeah,
and you can see there.
This is like Moore's law, but on the demand side.
Right.
Because Moore's law was like, okay, this is the compute we're generating because the chips keep improving. But this is on the demand side, which was driving the innovation side and the build out.
Right. There's a natural flywheel there where, like, the more data you have, the more useful the compute becomes, because then it can operationalize that data. And the more data you have, the more compute that you need. The more compute that you have, the better you can use that data. And it's
ultimately you're limited by the size of the silicon molecule. Okay. The silicon atoms. You get limited by the size of the electron. Okay, ultimately, which means at that point you can't make it any smaller. You just have to make more of it.
And if this becomes the new mode, so like what we talked about in a lot of the SaaS conversation, where you have APIs or even just Claude doing a lot of the coding, or Codex doing a lot of the coding, and just adopted use of Veo from Google, Sora, GPT from paid users, basically any tool that is going to require tokens, that's all going to drive demand. It's going to be sustained demand, right? Like, people GPT yesterday and they're going to GPT again tomorrow. That's not going to stop anytime soon. And it's only restricted really in the US. Like, we really haven't even began to expand a lot of those use cases, especially on the commercial and enterprise side, to Europe and other countries around the world.
I was at a laundromat conference last weekend, and the last presentation was on using AI in your laundromat. It was a bit dense and dry. Big time nerd doing it. Didn't have a lot of the entrepreneurs on board, but asked the question, who uses AI in their laundromats? The laundromats now, okay? And maybe 25% of people held up their hands. Or who uses AI every day? 25% of people held up their hands. And he's like, no, you're wrong. If you do a Google search, you're using AI.
Right.
Okay. So that's the thing people are not understanding. I mean, they're like, oh, I'm only using tokens when I'm using LLMs. Well, not when you're doing a Google search now, because you're getting AI results. But all like the next layer of applications that you think you're using, those are all going to be running on agents, and they're all going to be just cranking through tokens, which is why we need to put the power of the public utilities and their ability to scale power generation. We have to drive down the cost of tokens.
You're getting charged up.
not increase the charge of tokens by making the power generation private.
Well, if they do make the power generation private, isn't that good for companies like Bloom? It makes them go buy like an immediate solution.
I mean, maybe.
You're still upset. I understand. I get it.
But it's okay. Yeah, it could be good for a company like Bloom, but like, look, Microsoft Power and Light. Okay, that's more likely to be the future than Bloom Energy. Okay,
maybe
just a Microsoft Power. That's the future. Or Google Power, Google Energy, right? That's more the future. Like Tesla has its own energy production built inside its company, right?
Sure.
Now they use plenty of power off the grid, but they also have their own power generation side of things that they're selling it more so than using it, right? But I mean, you don't have to do solar if you do nuclear or, you know, LNG. Well, I mean, XAI uses LNG generators. But it's still like, come on, we have to drive down the cost of the tokens is where it's all going to be at. And the access to cheap tokens. You're far too young to remember, but June will remember, like the people who used to fearmonger about the information superhighway and how there's not going to be on-ramps for the information superhighway for the poor kids in the inner cities. Those people couldn't imagine that the poor kids in the inner cities would still all have mobile phones with 5G internet, and that those would be ubiquitous. Now, maybe not in the poorest areas, but in 95% of the country, the teenagers have mobile phones with full data plans.
Right. But that took some time to come along.
Yeah, but it happened.
Right.
And
I
it's
think
not
that,
like
I think
people
that
were
might
shut
be what
out,
happened with the AI
and
agent
your lack of access to the internet created a class, stratified class structure where people who had access to the internet could outperform everybody who, the plebs who were kept off the information superhighway because they didn't have an on-ramp in their neighborhood. This is actually a perfect example of the thing we were talking about. You can't imagine the people, the Jesse Jacksons of the world and the Al Sharptons who were saying that it was, that the internet was going to be disadvantageous to black and brown students in the late 1990s look like should be called out for the fools they looked like and the takes they had at those times because of how ubiquitous this all came and how cheap it got because capitalism.
Anecdotally, I've seen call center type jobs start to implement AI agents that will transcribe. I think a lot of people have heard about the agents that will take notes of a meeting. And there's been some commentary around that, like maybe being annoying and invasive. There's also companies now using these agents to simply transcribe a call for someone in real time. And all of that is using tokens as well, because, if you're live translating someone's call in real time, not only do you need that to be low latency, but you also need it to be accurate and potentially know multiple languages if there's a language barrier involved. And I think that's going to be a huge use case. So the corporate applications that people are not foreseeing, like stuff like this is going to be popping up left and right. I think every Fortune 500 company is thinking about how they can use these things, and they're going to be trying it out. And maybe a lot of it doesn't work, but I bet you some of it does. So that's where you get like the sustained demand. And again, on top of people using GPT and Gemini for their daily use and for their homework and for their learning and for their curiosity, you're also going to have people using it to do to use it as tools to do research. So, compiling data, like what a lot of us probably use it for, and to pull reports from more formalized reports that we can't be bothered looking through 80 pages of a 10K for, and even corporate applications where it's just organizing a lot of that information.
Data aggregation jobs should be replaced by AI. If all your job is to gather data, aggregate it, and summarize it, AI is replacing you.
So I have a fun story about this. So those of you who might know the game RuneScape, I used to play that game. Dougie, did you know about that game, RuneScape?
I know about it. I never played it.
Dude, I was in this game. I had what they call completionist cape. So I had 99 of every single skill. I had done every single quest. They had like a task diary where you went around and did like random stuff. Suffice it to say, I'll give you the short version. Really, really fun game to me, and I had like a good time on it. That was like a good chunk of my high school. And so I do remember dial-up internet because my brother and I, we used to have one computer at the time in middle school, and, mom would, of course, pick up the phone, and there goes your internet. And, a lot of times on this game, you would have items that you could lose if you died in game, and it would take 10, 20, 30 hours to like get enough gold to get these items back. So apologies to Mother Harrison there for any outburst after she picked up the phone and we lost some items, but we can always make money back, can't we?
Yeah, and now it's real money and not fake money.
Exactly. Although there was a little bit of a black market there for RuneScape gold. You could sell real RuneScape gold for real money. And
buddy, I played EverQuest. We invented that.
But the market got so real that it actually became a problem. I want to say like in 2017, 2018, when Venezuela started having their huge inflation issue, because no one could work jobs in Venezuela because, if you work for $10 an hour by the end of your shift, your Venezuelan currency has, just gone down by so much week to week. So there was a lot of Venezuelan people who were playing RuneScape, making money on the game, and then selling it for US dollars so that they would have a stable currency. So they were like professional RuneScape players making
That's wild, bro.
Making 30, 40, 50 US dollars a day.
That's wild. I remember when that type of thing used to be illegal, like in EverQuest. Like if they found out you were doing it, you'd get banned. And their primary reasoning for that, eventually they had to explain that to the player base, was, well, if these things have monetary value, then every time you get a dropped piece of loot, it's a taxable event.
Now, is that a realized taxable gain or unrealized?
Yeah, we don't want to get into the business of figuring out what the unrealized value of your loot is and sending you a 1099 miscellaneous every year.
That's awesome.
So stop doing this, or we'll ban you from the game. And it's like, okay, well, that's actually the best, and not to mention it actually does take away from the game play overall, but like that was like the best like real world explanation of why you really shouldn't do this in your video games. I get it. There's some people who just want to pay to win, but
that became an issue with the game itself on RuneScape, was if you can buy gold, like then you run into the mom credit card issue, and like some dumbass who doesn't really know like the knowledge of the game but has like all the money, and then like you go to a boss with them and like they don't know how to do the boss because they never learned how to play the game. They just bought their way. So yeah, it's always the thing.
Yeah.
I think that just about covers it. We've been on for like 2.5 hours.
We've gotten into RuneScape and EverQuest. I mean, look, we probably, if we were able to stay on like real topics, we probably have another 2 hours to cover. But I'm cashed.
We're cashed. It's midnight Dougie's time.
It's been a long day.
Long day.
So you know what I did? You know, like what we did today, right? So we drove to Baton Rouge last night for the gymnastics meet at LSU.
Okay.
We got up this morning at 5:30, drove back to Houston. I loaded everything in the car and drove directly another hour to the rocket launch. Was out at the launch all afternoon, like from noon to 5, cleaned up. Oh my gosh, these college teams are driving me nuts. There's like 30 of them there, and there's 5 volunteers like working to set up, and they're just like standing around and talking and doing whatever. It's like totally not paying attention to what's going on. Anyway, so just wiped after that, and then came back here and was like, well, I need to at least put in a little bit of work on the show tonight. Ugh. But yeah, at some point, ladies and gentlemen, we will have our graphics done sooner than 5 minutes after the show's supposed to start. Yeah.
Are you trying to say that this isn't a professional operation? What are you trying to say here?
I'm trying to say that you and I have too much going on in our lives to like fully devote to acting like professional streamers. Maybe one day. Actually, it might even be this week since I don't have that much going on anymore. But.
Can we expect some solo Dougie content? Is that what you're trying to say?
Oh God, no. I mean, maybe I almost did it on Wednesday, but then decided I didn't want to go without my partner. So I don't think people. I already tend to overshare sometimes, and I don't know when to stop talking. So that's why I need a conversation partner to have.
Sure. Well, as you know, I have Tuesdays off, so if we want to squeeze into a week, we can do that until you land another 9 to 5.
Yeah, let me look at this Tuesday I have my homeowners association meeting.
Okay. Yeah, we can try.
That's gonna be fun. Oh my God. We have someone she's like threatening to sue the board because we won't keep dogs from peeing in her yard. I'm like, I don't know what you want us to do, lady. Like they're dogs from town, like they're not even neighborhood dogs. She's like, and I guess you feel like they just all target your yard. But it's gonna be fun. I know that.
HOA meetings, fun. Those are usually the two things that I think.
Talk about a totally thankless job. I've determined that I do not want to do this anymore. But I'm going to serve out the term and then be like, all right, I'm out.
Well, look, if you do it, you can stop someone else from who's gonna make your life miserable from like doing that. Like you can defend yourself and advocate for yourself a little bit. So who knows?
Yeah. Well, the initial thing was you can't complain if you aren't willing to like serve, right?
Did you hear the George Carlin bit about this?
Maybe, but you know how I got elected? Okay, I won 100% of the vote when I was elected to the board. There were 2 votes. One of them was mine.
Was the others your wife's?
No, it was just another person. There were 3 openings and there were 2 candidates. So, like, that's how popular serving on the board is in this neighborhood of almost 400 homes.
The George Carlin joke used to go, if you vote in an election and I don't vote in an election, the common saying is like, you don't get to complain if you didn't vote. But George always used to say, well, of course I get to complain. I didn't vote in the problem. You did. I always thought that was funny. Anyways, with that, I think we are going to call it a night. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yep.
We've got our X's, of course, as always, down in the chat, as well as the Straight Exchange. Check out the Straight Exchange. I think Matt should probably be having more to come here at some point. But once again, thanks everyone for being here, staying up with us on Saturday night.
Wait, hold on,
Yes.
hold on. Am I reading in the chat that Laura and Lisa were hanging out?
Yeah. Where you been?
Running around, I guess. I don't know. But that sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, can confirm hanging out with Laura is a lot of fun. Haven't hung out with Lisa yet, but I do know that hanging out with Laura is a lot of fun. So
Yeah, Laura's shout out to Laura.
You're lined up for LA, right?
Yep.
All right. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, so LA meetup, end of March. We will see everyone who's going to be there. This is a MITS meetup in LA on the weekend of Friday, the 27th, 28th, 29th in March. We might have to venture out over to SoFi Stadium for a little bit of a field trip.
Well, we do have a field trip planned.
Yeah, we do. I don't think we want to talk about what that trip is.
SoFi. Yeah. We're not exposing that, but there is a pretty badass little trip planned.
Okay, Laura, we'll miss you there, but I think we're gonna wrap up. Get out of here. Thanks everyone for being here. Dougie, as always, good catching up with you. Good chats, and we are out of here.
All right. Bye, everybody.